Jean Betancourt looked up at her two companions. Acorn was staring at the lady looking pensive, while Minos was sulking, tail curled slightly around him at his lack of control over the story's structure. Jean waited for Acorn to speak. He did not. "So that's their plan," she eventually said. "Not so much a plan as a half-baked English dissertation," Minos grumbled. "If so," Betancourt replied, "Anna needs to give one hell of a defense." "Now what she said makes sense," Acorn said to himself, looking at the river intently. He turned to face the other two judges. "It's a physical place," he said. "The end of the book that they're heading to. It's literally the final page of that," pointing his hoof at the paperback on Jean's lap. "Book. Right before the back cover, and our job is to clear a path for them." Jean Betancourt immediately flipped to the last page. She squinted at it, held it to the light, trying to see through the paper pasted over it, but it was no use. It was totally obscured. "We need to get that off," Acorn said to her. "Restore the original text of that one page so the girls can make their changes, resetting the whole book." Minos flopped onto his back in a sunbeam and yawned. "Sounds like a straightforward assignment," he said. "We just dipped that page in the Levy. I assume that's why you brought us here, yes?" In Purgatorio, passing through those waters erased Dante's memories of his sins so that he could enter heaven, and since lately Anne has been developing a rough metaphor in which the altered text is equated to original sin, dunking that page in the river should make the obscuring sheet of paper. Slough off, dissolve, whatever. Another yawn. An insultingly simple errand. Where does the judging come in? "Because we could dip the whole book in," Betancourt said. She turned to Acorn. "Right?" Acorn nodded. "Exactly. Anna's scheme is risky. For one thing, it all hinges on a single choice. We could do everything to set the stage, but one moment of hesitation and it all falls apart. More importantly, I suspect that Anna's planning something she didn't tell me. I bet she'll try to protect herself and the girls from the reset. Try to drag them through the other side. The other side of the other side of the other side? And if they manage to get through... who knows what else would get through with them," Betancourt finished. "So we can either help the girls knowing that they might fail, or if we decide the book's too dangerous or toxic to allow even the chance of its survival, we can take the choice out of their hands, destroy it ourselves, and with it, any slim chance they might have of survival." "Theirs would be a soft reset," Minos said. "Ours, if we choose to implement it, would be a hard one. Fair enough." Jean Betancourt took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. "Okay," she said at last. "Let's judge this sucker." If you want to read every single word of their argument and slog through all the tedious bullshit, please see Appendix B, Record of the Arbiter's Discussion. Oh wait, this appendix doesn't exist because nobody wants to read all that bullshit, so here's the highlights. Betancourt began by summarizing the original plot of Detective Pony. They all agree that it wasn't an artistic triumph, but a kid who liked ponies would probably enjoy it. Minos reminded them of Dirk's earlier argument that his text was better because it was more interesting, more experimental, more daring. Yes, they decided, it was all of those things, but did that make it better? The conversation then meandered into a lengthy discussion of the merits of artistic appropriation, some tedious but what is art really semantics. The concept of originality entered again. They decided that while originality isn't necessary for art, something original always has the potential to be artistic. Dirk's text was, yes, original. It lay on the border between collage and decollage, and, though hardly a human monument, it was still, by their definition, art, appropriative though it was. Not that this was relevant. Being art didn't make it significantly less worthy of destruction, but it wasn't worthless was the point. There were a few things that made this a special case though. The first one being that the three of them were, you know, sentient beings inside this thing. And really, that should overrule all of this. People were being hurt, and they could undo that suffering, artistic though it may be. But they wanted to be more objective. The second unique thing about Dirk's edits was how they interacted with the original text, how nebulous yet sinister and controlling this interaction was. His edits commented on the text from a point of detachment, but in other places acted as if they were the real text. There was something inherently violent about it. Even the physical product was aggressive, covering the original, erasing and replacing it. And considering that this perverse thing had been a wholesome book for young readers, it was more than a little disturbing. Destroying it would be a loss, they decided. They would be destroying something of value, but the value of what they recovered would be greater. Boom, decided. Now the matter was whether to destroy it themselves or to let Anna try to reset it on her own terms. Acorn estimated that Anna's plan had maybe an 80% chance of success. They agreed, yeah, Anna should probably be the one to destroy it on her own terms. But was it worth the risk? Was the chance that the girls might fail or that Anna might fuck it up with her attempt to live through the reset an acceptable one? Or was it more important that the book was destroyed no matter what? They had their 3 ideas. Minos gave his verdict first. He was still lying in his sunbeam, swishing his tail idly. "Let's just chuck it in the river," he said. "That's what we want anyway. And frankly, I'm bored. I enjoyed being mysterious and cryptic and showing up to whisper a riddle and disappear into the dark. But now, nothing interesting is happening. This book is a failed experiment, and I'm really not inclined to go through all of it again. Justify the decision with morality or art or ethics or whatever, but we've decided now the responsible thing is to follow through." Now it was Jean Betancourt's turn. "I think this text shouldn't exist," she said. "Let's begin there. I think it's offensive and crude and not so subtly misogynistic and, most importantly, cruel. I defend Dirk's artistic license to do offensive and crude things, but once he realized these characters are real people, continuing with his little project and justifying that suffering because it was interesting is unconscionable. That said, I don't think the 3 of us should destroy the text. Anna, Pam, and Lulu deserve to choose, even if they choose suffering. Depriving them of that would also be cruel. Clear the final page for them, but leave the rest so they can make their own choice." "It seems that you have the deciding vote, Acorn," Minos said, unsurprisingly. "So tell us the 3rd idea." Acorn fidgeted. He did have a 3rd idea, but it wouldn't break the tie. He couldn't bring himself to say it. How could he tell him that he didn't want to change the text at all? That he, selfishly, he knew, wanted it to stay this way, even if he agreed it was wrong. But there was one thing that remained constant through all permutations of the story, all trials, all universes. Acorn fucking loved Anna. How could he condone something that would destroy the one thing in the world towards which he felt any hint of emotion? Even if she herself wanted this destruction, he couldn't allow it. No, he wanted to leave the book as it was. He wanted to leave the book as it was? Really? Jean Betancourt said. Acorn snapped out of his internal monologue and looked at the author. She was, of course, holding the book open, reading Acorn's narrated thoughts. "Yeah," Acorn said with a petulant whinny, "there it is. I picked the 3rd option, the one that fucks over everyone except me and my rider. Hung jury." "Not necessarily." "What the hell?" Jean Betancourt exclaimed, recoiling in shock and revulsion from the book she was holding. "Hi guys, did you miss me?"